like every captain gotta maintain the cap. You can make change, don't change for that. Tell the whole truth, get paid for that. Bet you never fall off, you was made for that. You gotta be who you really be, shine from the inside. Cause they ain't really who they say on the outside. You gotta be who you really be, shine from the inside. Cause they ain't really who they say on the outside. Slide around the city with my day one. I ain't gotta worry cause they A1.
What's up guys, I'm Landon from Shoewear, and today we're checking out the newly released Jordan Zion 2 in this Voodoo colorway. So if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So taking a quick look at the box and the price, this is actually a pretty sweet box with a lot of details kind of worked in here. You're gonna have like a protective sleeve kind of running over the top with that do not open text on one side, and then on the reverse side of that it's gonna be some Zion text, and his name is also gonna show up on the top of the box, and the box actually kind of matches like the color scheme or like the colorway on these shoes. So I mean, just a pretty cool setup here. I actually do like it. But as for the pricing, these are going to stay the same from his first shoe line, retailing for $120, which is going to be on the more affordable side for a signature line. So that is nice. So taking a quick look at the appearance for these, I just want to hit on the Voodoo colorway first, just because from looking at them, you can tell there's a whole lot of stuff going on, and there is. So these are going to be covered in materials that are usually found in like traditional dolls and altars of African-born religious movement. You can have like a bunch of different textures. Like, I mean, the entire tongue is going to be made up of like this pony hair type feel, and it's a very neutral colored shoe, or, you know, I guess maybe more like earth toned would be a better way to say it. But I mean, now looking at the model itself, as for the structure, it is going to be, you know, kind of similar to the height and build of the Jordan Zion 1, but there are some changes. So the obvious one would be the Jordan brand kind of adding the strap to this year's Zion 2 after not having it on last year's model. And I actually like how they set it up to be a little bit smaller. Like some recent lines that have used the strap, like the KD14, the Zoom Freak 3, both of those had like a wider strap. And I mean, I do like the look of both, but aside from it being functional, I just think it has a cool aesthetic for like having a strap on basketball shoes, I should say. But you know, as for the tongue, you're gonna get some like that same Zion text that shows up from the box, and the font they use on that is actually really sweet. I think that's a cool little writing font there. But for the heel on this colorway is going to be like a skull or like something along those lines. But on most colorways kind of going forward, I think it should be like a big Jumpman logo on the heel spot for that. This Voodoo pair just has like a few different features that are going to be special to this colorway only. Like the pony hair, I don't think that's going to show up or like be consistent with some of the other models going forward. And same thing with the Nike swoosh kind of on the inside of the upper for these. But I mean, I really do love the reverse swoosh that they've been using on basketball shoes. Like a bunch of lines have been doing that recently. Just to mention some other lines like KD15, the PG6, Zoom Freak 3, all of those like kind of have been throwing a reverse swoosh like on the inside of the upper. I just think it's really cool. But you know, there weren't any Nike swoosh logos on Zion's shoe last year, so I don't really see it on any of the upcoming models either. So that's probably another spot that's just going to be specific to these. But overall, I really do love the look or the start for Zion's line, just as far as the appearance. Like for sure, the Zion ones looked really clean. The Zion 2s are right there with them. So now looking at more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning, the Zion 2 is actually the first shoe to feature Nike's new larger air strobel unit in the heel, which is there to give you a springy feel but also responsive support. And then in the forefoot, or just like, you know, the front portion of the shoe, you're going to get a Zoom Air unit to kind of go along with everything else. You know, I gotta be honest here, like, I'm a little conflicted on how these play for the cushioning. Like, there's definitely gonna be a little bit more stiff than the Zion ones, I will say that, but I mean, you can also feel that Zoom Air unit in the forefoot. It does give you a little extra bounce. I wouldn't really say more so than like the Kyrie 8 or like the KD15 from what I felt. It kind of has that same kind of setup in the forefoot, but something with the heel, like, I mean, I know they used a whole new setup there and it does feel pretty good, but like not good enough to where I'd bring it up specifically if Nike didn't like draw extra attention to it on their own. And I was going to mention this a little bit more in the material section here in just a second, but like, I mean, there are some Achilles pads in like the sock liner for this year's Zion 2, and they're pretty stiff and it makes my foot a little bit uncomfortable. Like, the pads are definitely going to help with support, which I'm about to talk about, but as far as like the overall comfort, I wouldn't say it's the best aspect on this year's model. Like, I honestly might prefer the Zion 1 cushioning a little bit. So now getting into the materials and the support, the Zion 2 has a canvas upper with some suede overlays, and I'm thinking the suede part is going to be more so specific just to this colorway. I'm not sure what the other ones will get going forward, but it most likely won't be suede in that spot. But I mean, for $120, this shoe definitely doesn't feel cheap. It's not a cheap model for sure. I don't think like the Zion ones felt cheap either. He's had a pretty quality line just from that aspect so far, like from the materials perspective. But one thing about this shoe that is a little bit different is going to be that the laces feed through the tongue. It just makes it a little bit weird to lace up, I thought. It's definitely not a big deal, just something unique, you know, kind of to these. But as for the support, that is something I was a little bit iffy on for the Zion 1, just because the upper felt a little bit thin. But I mean, I can confidently say you don't have anything to worry about on the Zion 2 for support. I mean, it feels like you have less stretch on the materials to the upper for sure, like, and that automatically is going to lead to a more secure feel. And of course, you're going to have that forefoot strap to kind of, you know, eliminate any of your lateral movement on your foot. And then to bring it back to the laces, they are going to feed through this brown overlay on the upper. And that's just going to help, you know, once you tighten that up, it's going to help keep your foot within the design. So there are a lot of good features to kind of help with the support on this model alone. But the heel is where they kind of start to lose me a little bit. So right now we're talking about support, and as far as support goes, like, you're going to have those Achilles pads in the sock liner to help you feel more secure. But I don't know, like, it almost feels like it's too much. Like, this isn't a whole new concept. There's some shoes out there like the Harden 6, the Harden 5, the Jordan 35s, just a bunch of different models that have used, you know, a similar Achilles pad setup. But this is kind of the first model to noticeably bother me with it. Like, I'm going to get a pair in a different colorway to kind of check out in the future so I can see what materials are being used on every single pair, because, you know, like I've been saying, I'm pretty sure a few different things show up on these that aren't going to make it onto some of his other colorways. But I mean, anyways, while that spot is going to help with support, I just wouldn't say it's going to be the most comfortable shoe to play in, and the pads definitely don't help with that. But support is definitely the strongest part of the shoe. With you know, Zion suffering a few different injuries early in his career, with at least one of them coming because of a shoe, I'm not really surprised that Nike or Jordan, I guess, kind of put a special interest on keeping these supportive. I mean, it did cause the Zion 2, though, with all these extra materials, it did cause the Zion 2 to get a little bit heavier, weighing 464 grams for a size 10.5, which is roughly up 70 grams compared to the Zion 1s. So it's not necessarily going to be considered a heavy shoe, but it's not going to play the lightest either. To finish off with traction, that's a spot the Zion 1 was pretty good, but I think it actually did get a little bit better here on the Zion 2. For the pattern, you're going to get some vertical lines with more of like an organized look than last year's model. I think this design does kind of set you up for a better playing feel, and you're going to have some Zion branding kind of built into the pattern too. I think that's a pretty clean look. But I mean, you're even going to get a herringbone setup and with like some arrows kind of in the heel. And these play really solid from my first few times trying them out. There's definitely some bite on the floor. I haven't really had any times where I've noticed the traction just, you know, not really catching, and at least up until this point. So I mean, I would say the traction alongside with the support is probably going to be one of the better aspects to this shoe. And honestly, the grooves are pretty thick, so I do feel like they will last a while. Durability shouldn't be bad at all. I still wouldn't be quick to use these outdoors though, just because, you know, more from a comfort perspective in my opinion. But to finish off with sizing, I went true to size, and that is what I would recommend most likely. The width is normal and the length is about perfect for me. There isn't a ton of room left over though, so you may want to test out going a half size up if you prefer a little extra room to play in. But, you know, in summary, I am a little bit torn on this year's model as a whole. Some aspects did improve. Honestly, you could probably argue that most of them did, between the materials, the support, maybe the traction a little bit, but the cushioning just doesn't play as well in my opinion, and that might change a little bit more over time as I continue to play in these. So, you know, I am keeping the door open. They definitely aren't unplayable though. The Zion 2, I mean, it still feels pretty good, just not quite as soft, but I mean, for $120, there are multiple pieces about this shoe to be drawn towards. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying these shoes, just click the link on screen, or we have links down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next time, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.